Hello! This book follows Kilgore Trout and Dwayne Hoover. Many of Trout's science fiction books are published in pornographic magazines for some reason, although the text of his books is supposedly not in any way pornographic. Hoover is a car dealership owner who goes mad and eventually bites off part of Trout's finger, incidentally aided by the reading of one of Trout's books about robots of all things. I'm reading for this project for Dr. Vincent Moore's literary theory class, Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions, or Good Vibes on Monday. And this book, to summarize the plot, if I can briefly, is about a science fiction author who gets invited to an arts festival. And it follows him as he makes his way and eventually meets Hoover, who is, as we said, a car dealership owner. But really, the perspective of the book is part of what's interesting. We'll get into that just a little bit. I'll eventually then be talking about deconstruction. And there are a lot of things that jump out as very reminiscent of deconstruction. And we can also use that method of analysis to the book itself. So we'll try not to get too lost, too buried underneath all the layers, especially because this book is from the perspective of the narrator, who is speaking as an author, and that narrator is explaining a story about an author. So we have at least 3 levels of author here, and it gets a little confusing sometimes, especially as the author suddenly finds himself inside the novel itself and sitting next to some of the characters and discussing what's going on. So, for those that haven't read this book, Vonnegut has pictures scattered throughout. And they seem random at times, but they'll give a little, they probably do no justice here on this video, but just to get you some perspective of kind of style. So, as we said, the author himself appears in the book, though not by name, and seems to be either the inventor of the universe or someone that identifies himself with an ex-soldier homosexual cocktail lounge piano man named Bunny. So our summary here doesn't describe everything, but you at least get an idea of where Vonnegut's coming from. And we want to now go into a little bit about deconstruction, and so what that will mean, at least according to the text we've had in this class, is unveiling things that are finding internal contradictions, according to Parker, and according to Sarah, we're revealing undecidability, and undecidability is found throughout this book. The characters themselves are undecided and vague at times and confused, and they go mad. So there's plenty of deconstruction material to be used here. But we'll pick one thing in particular, and that's language. And at several points in the book, the author, the science fiction author, Kilgore Trout, points out something about language. And in particular, we'll find one passage here where he's on his travels, he's on his way to this arts festival, and he's hitchhiking. And so he gets picked up by a truck driver, and they're conversing together, and eventually they get talking about the name of the truck company, and there's a little picture of it right there. Pyramid Trucking Company, I guess, is the name of it, which our character, Trout, finds funny because he compares it to actual pyramids, which he compares to a trucking company. So very different things according to Trout, and I think we can find this passage here. So he said, "Why would any business of high-speed transportation name his business and his trucks after buildings which haven't moved an eighth of an inch since Christ was born?" Pretty good argument. So we're going to take that. There's a few other passages where he refers to kind of the absurdity of naming things, certain things that are kind of really contradictory to their actual meanings. I want to just share one more passage, then we'll talk a little bit about that, and then use some deconstruction.